This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Let's welcome Nolan Del Campo to the show.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Thought I would start out with some interesting information or a bit of research based on a new case that not a new case, I suppose, a continued case, should I say. I actually had a letter from 1915 that was being asked to be authenticated for its time frame, in which case I did what I could do without them actively sending me the letter, but they ended up actually sending it overnight for me to do an examination on it, which caused me to deep dive into paper research. Yeah. I've been talking, I'm pretty sure that I've discussed it on the show a few times about hemp having been the primary use for paper before Hearst had gotten his hands on demolishing basically that particular part of the market and farms that raised hemp way back in the day. Have you heard me talk about that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that hemp was a big product back in the day.
Right. And it was also in our mainstream food because as it was on the farms, the animals would actually graze on it. So right. It was literally already being fed through the system. And of course, we're eating those foods. So we're getting these cannabinoids, like all the interesting factors about what hemp used to do really kind of fell to the wayside because I'm more or less focused on, the dirtiness of Randolph Hearst and his logging industry because he made more money off of wood because hemp was so cheap to farm and make.
Wow.
So in my particular research that I was looking for, I'm trying to identify the paper that I'm dealing with, of course, because it has a very odd pattern to it, which I'd not seen before. Very different from the 1787 letter that I authenticated, which that was actually from a government official. So there was plenty of telltale signs like watermarks from the company that made it, the actual process of the fiber pressing and the tools used to make the paper was apparent in the actual pressing of the paper. So it really allows you to time date it very accurately. But then as we see the changes that are happening in paper, they're less identifiable as they continue to change the process and introduce new things. But the article that I read that I found in regards to the hemp, it says that during the 1850s, a mill in Chatham, Four Corners, New York, diverged from the conventional straw rag mix, and using the Hollingsworth whitening process, they began making a new variety of straw manila papers called bogus manila. Bogus manila was made of 20% straw and 80% hemp or burlap. I was like, wow, that's a large percentage. And really kind of just took me back to if they were using that much and then they go and introduce wood pulp as a part of the process in making paper, but it's the wood pulp and the acid in the wood that actually causes papers to yellow, become brittle over time and break and fall apart. So the process that Hearst pushed for so that he could make more money, logging trees for paper, it actually causes the papers to diminish, yellow, and become brittle. So I thought that was all
misdirected use of resources.
Absolutely.
As a society, it would have been so much easier to stay with hemp.
Yeah, I mean, because it's used for so many things.
And more environmentally safe.
Correct. And of course, we went through that whole entire period where lumber pricing went straight through the roof. So once he gets these farmers so heavily taxed that they can't afford to farm anymore, it's kind of like, keeping water from our farmers, midway through the Bakersfield area and stuff like that. Like they're constantly complaining, like our water needs to stay here kind of thing, because they're basically a dust bowl. They don't get enough water and we're giving it to someone else kind of thing. So I guess Randolph Hearst lobbied to have hemp taxed, and then evidently it became so expensive on the farmers, they had to just basically quit doing it altogether. And then it becomes illegalized all the way up until Trump comes out. And was that the Farm Act? What was that act in Trump's first term? He passed it shortly after coming into his first term, basically legalizing hemp and the manufacture of hemp, so the farmers can actually manufacture all this stuff again. It is definitely cheaper to produce. Again, it was in our mainstream food because the farm animals were grazing on it. And obviously, since Hearst found I think it just goes back to his dirty journalism. Like everything, it seems like this man gets his hands into is dirty. My little rant. Let me get on.
By the way, is that a new chair?
Yeah, it's the same one.
Yeah, just different color.
Yeah, I took the white one upstairs because I wanted something that the arms flipped up on for my vanity. Nice catch.
I love these chairs. Yeah, you've seen mine.
I did too. I even got one for my son-in-law for his birthday because they were on sale. I was like, let me take two.
Yeah, no doubt.
Let's see. Let's move along here, folks. We are on. I don't know where Harriet and Lindsay is. Neither have responded. I hope everybody is okay, but we're going to have to continue without them.
Okay.
All right. Now, why is I guess you got to turn it on, Annette. There we go. Okay. All right. So we left off last week on Rupert Murdoch and his happenings. I wanted to continue on with that, continue to read some of the history of Murdoch. He seems to fall right in line with people such as Hearst. So I didn't think that research was out of the ordinary. Just another news person to complain about. Oh, and I did actually get to at least the John Benet Ramsey article in the True Crime magazine from People. I'm not going to really cover it all right now because I literally ended up with an entire page of notes on it. But I did want to say that the individual who was reaching out to me, I think his name was Casbah, was trying to convince me that this guy that played Santa Claus at John Benet Ramsey's house was the killer. He believed he was, even though he had no handwriting for me to look at to even determine. So I'm not sure what evidence he thinks makes this guy I think that Lindsay had said she was speaking to him in our comments on the show, and she had said that he mentioned that he had worked with or was working with Rupert Murdoch. I was like, that's interesting. So we've got somebody who's watching the show, and he seems a little quirky. Like I seen one of his videos, and he's posted up in barely nothing in what looks like a kid's fort, but he's very much an older gentleman, saying that, things like he doesn't want people to know he's there. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's weird.
Yeah. So his
quick comment on the Ramsey note. My take on that is it looks like someone was disguising their writing. It's all weird. Doesn't flow.
No, and that's absolutely true. It isn't until you get to the third page and about the last paragraph, you see some actual writing that you can tell is obviously the author's true form of handwriting. It is very much different. It's pretty much, I want to say it says something like common sense or something like that, but the formation of the capital letter M's in the middle of lowercase printing, the size of the lowercase letters, but their capital M's are consistent with the way Jack writes. And again, they're very different from every other M that's in the actual ransom note. And that was one other
point is that there's always a possibility too that the person who wrote the note wasn't the actual killer.
Correct. Absolutely.
Might have been more people involved. Who knows?
Exactly. I did note that when I was watching the documentary that they indicated that the killer started to write the note and he actually addressed it in the first case to Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey. Then he stops writing and begins the next page with just John Ramsey. So tells me that John was the hit, not Patsy. Because as he started to write it to them, then he turns around and he directs it just at John Ramsey. But Bill, it says Bill McReynolds, and that's the guy that this Casbah, or I think that's what his YouTube name is, believes is the suspect of the Zodiac. But when I read the article, it actually shows in the article that he was cleared of DNA. So to blatantly ignore that, in lieu of wanting to, fit this guy into your suspect pool is no different than what the entire article on the Ramseys really kind of entailed or made me think is that they're there just to muddy the waters, because they report a timeline, but they don't discuss that they had been excluded from DNA in 1997. And then they flip flop back and forth. They'll tell a piece of the Ramsey's stories where they, are claiming they didn't do this. And then they'll flip over to, but this investigator said they had to. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is 2021. They've been cleared not once, but twice by the DA, and charges were never brought against them. And while they say that they were cleared from DNA in 2008, they follow that with a statement that his name's Baden. I don't know who Baden is, but states that Baden says that DNA is not reliable. So why do you follow? They've been cleared by DNA with something as confusing as DNA is not reliable. It's like you're just purposely confusing America.
Yes, and I think by that time DNA was reliable.
Exactly. Well, in 97 it was as well. And I think the guy's take on it was, oh, well, DNA could come from the packaging from China. So when the person packages these clothing and ships them over here, their DNA could be on it. I mean, come on now. Seriously, the DNA was found in her underwear and inside of her long johns that matched. You're telling me that one person in China packed both these items and John Bonet just happened to have received them? I don't know. It's ludicrous. Anything to confuse society, I suppose.
Yes.
All right. So activities in the United States for Murdoch, it says made his first acquisition in the United States in 1973 when he purchased the San Antonio Express News. In 1974, Murdoch moved to New York City to expand into the U.S. market. However, he retained interest in Australia and Britain. Soon afterwards, he founded Star, a supermarket tabloid. Go figure. I always.
Okay. Wow.
What's that? Yeah. And I think that many of the articles that I have from the 1996 era, 1997 era in regards to John Bonet Ramsey, like I said, they were one of those fake tabloids, fake news.
Like the Inquirer and the Star.
Yeah. Who gets involved with that if you're a serious person about wanting to report the news? I don't understand.
Money.
That's all they care about. And in 1976, he purchased the New York Post. On 4th of September 1985, Murdoch became a naturalized citizen to satisfy the legal requirement that only U.S. citizens were permitted to own U.S. television stations. What?
The New York Post doesn't have a very good reputation.
Well, neither does Rupert Murdoch. Every time I mention his name to somebody, they're like, oh, he's a crook. I'm like, I wouldn't have known any of this if it wasn't for Lindsay. I tell you what. In 1987, Murdoch created his global television special, the World Music Video Awards. Wow. A special music ceremony award where winners were chosen by viewers in 8 countries. In Australia, during 1987, he bought the Herald and Weekly Times Ltd. I guess Australia must not have that same requirement to be a citizen in order to control news medias and outlets, because he had to,
renounce a citizenship to be an American.
Yeah, just to be able to own newspapers here. Bought that. The company that his father had once managed, Rupert Murdoch's 20th Century Fox, bought out the remaining assets of 4-Star Television from Ronald Perlman's Compact Video in 1996. Most of 4-Star's Television's library of programs are controlled by 20th Century Fox Television today. After Murdoch's numerous buyouts during the buyout era of the 80s, News Corporation had built up financial debts of $7 billion, much from Sky TV in the UK. Despite the many assets that were held by News Corp, the high levels of debt caused Murdoch to sell many of the American magazine interests he had acquired in the mid-1980s. Huh. Well, he didn't file bankruptcy, right? In 1993, Murdoch's Fox Network took exclusive coverage of the National Football Conference of the National Football League from CBS and increased programming to 7 days a week. Wow, he just got his hands in everything.
Yes.
In 1995, Fox became the object of scrutiny from the Federal Communications Commission when it was alleged that News Ltd's Australian base made Murdoch's ownership of Fox illegal. However, the FCC ruled in Murdoch's favor, stating that his ownership of Fox was in the best interest of the public. What the heck? What? Can you say people in your pocket? That same year, Murdoch announced a deal with MCI Communications. I remember MCI. Do you remember MCI?
Yes.
To develop a major news website and magazine, The Weekly Standard. Also that year, News Corporation launched the Foxtel pay television network in Australia in partnership with Telstra. In 1996, Murdoch decided to enter the cable news market with the Fox News Channel, a 24-hour cable news station. So I'm glad that here in Wikipedia, they proclaim that he is a news station, because I did talk about it, I think, last week in regards to the post that was done on Facebook where Fox had to settle out of court for some astronomical amount of money, claiming that they don't report the news. They're just there for entertainment.
Well, depends on your perspective.
I was going to say, lying to major America, major America. Is that what you call entertainment? Beating stories, not getting the stuff straight, not doing the work and the journalistic integrity to make sure that the story is correct and that your facts are right. Okay. Meh.
And putting out weird angles and skewing things.
Yeah. It says ratings studies released in 2009 showed that the network was responsible for 9 of the top 10 programs in the cable news category at that time. Wow. That's not a monopoly.
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch. The what?
90% is pretty close to monopoly.
Yeah. Rupert Murdoch and Ted Turner, founder and former owner of CNN, are long-standing rivals. In the late 2003, Murdoch acquired a 34% stake in Hughes Electronics, the operator of the largest American satellite TV system, DirecTV, from General Motors. Doesn't that scream? If we go back to the Oakland County child murders with Chris Bush and his father being one of the head people in the finance division for General Motors. Yeah. Wow. For $6 billion, his Fox movie studio. There's
coincidences everywhere, or connections. Maybe they're more than coincidence. Who knows?
Right. So his Fox movie studio had global hits with Titanic and Avatar. Oh, both very good movies. I do enjoy both of those.
Those are both James Cameron films.
Well, then he is promoting James Cameron, right? Yeah. Or James Cameron is promoting him by way of allowing him to be the one to air them.
James Cameron's known for spending the most money of any director on production of films.
Maybe he likes to get it right, so he spends more time and has better integrity in his films than the person who plays them.
Yeah. I met his personal assistant at the LA Country Club one year, years ago.
Oh, wow.
We all had brunch together. My buddy's grandma was a member.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I guess you'd be rubbing and bumping elbows with all kinds of people there.
Yes, it's the most prestigious country club in LA, even more prestigious than Bel Air or Riviera.
Huh. Things I will never know of.
Yeah. They just played the U.S. Open there last year.
Now that makes sense. But yep. And that's golf, right? Let me just check.
Yeah, yep, golf.
On the 20th of July, 2005, News Corporation bought Intermex Media, Inc., which held MySpace, Imagine Games Network, and other social networking-themed websites for US $580 million, making Murdoch a major player in online media concerns. Doesn't surprise me. In June 2011, it sold off MySpace for $35 million. On September 11, 2005, News Corporation announced that it would buy IGN Entertainment for $650 million. In May of 2000, Murdoch made a $5 billion offer to purchase Dow Jones and Company. Well, we're back to Dow Jones once again.
And didn't he complete the purchase?
At the time, it says the Bancroft family, who had owned Dow Jones and Company for 105 years and controlled 60% of the shares at the time, declined the offer.
Whoa, okay.
Later, the Bancroft family confirmed a willingness to consider a sale. Besides Murdoch, the Associated Press reported that supermarket magnate Ron Burkle and the internet entrepreneur Brad Greenspan were among the others interested parties. In 2007, Murdoch acquired Dow Jones and Company, you're right, which gave him such publications as the Wall Street Journal, Barron's Magazine, the Far Eastern Economic Review, based in Hong Kong, and Smart Money. So yeah, you're correct. Yep. Well, and he was partnered up. We started on this whole Rupert Murdoch thing back with the Atlanta, Georgia child killer cases, because the insert listed one of his newspapers, and the list of those newspapers included Dow Jones. So it's definitely
New York Times,
right? Which
and
is
then
definitely
Wall Street Journal. My mistake. Wall Street Journal. Yeah.
Yes. So it says in June 2014, Murdoch's 21st Century Fox made a bid for Time Warner at $85 per share in stock and cash, $80 billion total, which Time Warner's board of directors turned down in July. Warner's CNN unit would have been sold to ease antitrust issues of the purchase. All right, explain an antitrust to me.
Antitrust, that's when people are trying to monopolize. So the antitrust laws are designed to prevent monopolies.
Okay, so Warner's CNN unit would have been sold to ease the antitrust issues of the purchase.
Okay. Right. So he was acquiring too much of the same thing. So he was trying to take some pressure off.
Gotcha. So on August 5th of 2014, the company announced it had withdrawn its offer for Time Warner and said it would spend $6 billion buying back its own shares over the following 12 months. Murdoch left his post as CEO of 21st Century Fox in 2015, but continued to own the company until it was purchased by Disney in 2019. Again, just circling these people.
Yeah.
A number of television broadcasting assets were spun off into the Fox Corporation before the acquisition and are still owned by Murdoch. This includes Fox News, of which Murdoch was acting CEO from 2016 until 2019, following the resignation of Roger Ailes due to accusations of sexual harassment. Murdoch considered merging News Corp and Fox Corporation, but in January 2023 announced to the board that he had withdrawn the idea, stating that he and his son, Lachlan, had determined that a combination was not optimal for shareholders of News Corp and Fox at that time. The special committee of the board directors of News Corp that had been set up to investigate the matter was dissolved. In September 2023, Rupert Murdoch retired and handed over the leadership of the business to his eldest son, Lachlan, which that ran into the irrevocable trust, right? Where the other siblings are trying to fight that. So it does show him up here with some pictures, like with John F. Kennedy in the Oval Office, with Ronald Reagan in the Oval Office. I mean, he's definitely rubbing elbows with all of these political figures.
Well, that's as far back as 61. Wow. Crazy.
Right? So political activities in the United States, McKnight 2010 identifies 4 characteristics of his media operations: free market ideology, unified positions on matter of public policy, global editorial meetings, and opposition to liberal bias in other public media. In The New Yorker, Ken Auletta writes that Murdoch's support for Edward Koch, while he was running
Koch. Yeah. The mayor of New York. City?
Yeah. Writes
Okay.
that Murdoch's support for Koch while he was running for mayor of New York spilled over into the news pages of the Post, with the paper regularly publishing glowing stories about Koch and sometimes savage accounts of his 4 primary opponents. So there's the weaponizing of the media that we saw done with Trump. You know, they're going to support their favorite fan, and then they're going to figure out whatever dirt they can throw at the other person. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I stopped even watching TV. I got sick of all of the political hate. You know, I don't want to hear about what these people done. What are they going to do? I'm not about the past. I'm about the future. How are you going to, what are you going to do for us?
Yep.
According to the New York Times, Ronald Reagan's campaign team credited Murdoch and the Post for his victory in New York in the 1980 United States presidential election. Reagan later waived a prohibition against owning a television station and a newspaper in the same market, allowing Murdoch to continue to control the New York Post and the Boston Herald while expanding into television. So again, they make their laws so they don't break them, right?
Right.
And they're all assisting each other. Yep, they make their own rules.
Yeah.
On the 8th of May 2000.
Reagan didn't get the favor.
He didn't what?
Forget the favor of Murdoch helping him win New York.
Of course.
So, yeah.
It says on May 8th, 2006, the Financial Times reported that Murdoch would be hosting a fundraiser for Senator Hillary Clinton's New York Senate re-election campaign. In a 2008 interview with Walt Mossberg, Murdoch was asked whether he had anything to do with the New York Post's endorsement of Barack Obama in the Democratic primaries. Without hesitating, Murdoch replied, "Yeah, he's a rock star. It's fantastic. I love what he is saying about education. I don't think he will win Florida, but he will win in Ohio and the election. I'm anxious to meet him. I want to see if, let's get to the note, he will walk the walk." So interesting. He's obviously pro-Democrats, right?
Well, those two are Democrats, but that's all I find it really odd that he would support Obama.
Why?
I can see him supporting Hillary because she's tied into a lot of different shit, but Obama is pretty progressive. And that's anti-Murdoch conservative as hell. So it's just odd that he would promote Obama.
Do we call this conservative?
Sense that Obama was going to win and got on the bandwagon.
Probably, right? Putting out the best news makes the most money.
Yeah, and then he could say, "Hey, Obama, I helped you win. Now, where's my payback?"
Exactly. Yeah, isn't that like protection from the mob?
Yeah.
In 2010, News Corporation gave US $1 million to the Republican Governors Association and $1 million to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Murdoch also served on the board of directors of the Libertarian Cato Institute. Murdoch is also supporter of the Stop Online Piracy Act and Protect Intellectual Property Act. Murdoch was reported in 2011 as advocating more open immigration policies in the Western nations generally. In the United States, Murdoch and chief executives from several major corporations, including Hewlett-Packard, Boeing, and Disney, joined New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg to form the Partnership for a New American Economy to advocate for immigration reform, including a path to legal status for illegal aliens now in the United States. Ooh, I bet you that pisses Trump off. The coalition, reflecting Murdoch and Bloomberg's own views, also advocates significant increases in legal immigration to the United States as a means of boosting America's sluggish economy and lowering employment. The partnership's immigration policy prescriptions are notably similar to those of Cato Institute and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, both of which Murdoch has supported in the past. The Wall Street Journal editorial page has similarly advocated for increased legal immigration, in contrast to the staunch anti-immigration stance of Murdoch's British newspaper, The Sun. So he's playing both freaking sides based on what politics wants. That's just disgusting. Like, how are you going to... It's not good to move in illegal citizen or illegal immigrants into Britain, but it's okay to cram them into the U.S.?
Well,
that really doesn't...
He's looking for a glut of employees so he can keep wages down.
People who will do the jobs that nobody else will do.
Yeah, for cheap.
Yeah. On the 5th of September 2010, Murdoch testified before the House Subcommittee on Immigration, Citizenship, Refugees, Border Security, and International Law membership on the role of immigration in strengthening America's economy. In his testimony, Murdoch called for ending mass deportations and endorsed a comprehensive immigration reform plan that would include a pathway to citizenship for all illegal immigrants. But at what point, I mean, to what avail? Because what I'm hearing is that a lot of them are coming in, they're receiving mass amounts of benefits. That's really just a hardship on the US. And most of them are not even wanting to work. You know, I took a Uber ride not too long ago, and the gentleman was Armenian. He's been here for 30 some years. Of course, he's legal. And he stated that, and he's talking against his own countrymen. He's like, there's many people that are coming here from Armenia seeking refugee status. He says they're getting their benefits, but then they don't want to work, and they're basically just living off of the programs that are being offered to them as refugees. Is there, a time limit like welfare should have? You need to go get a education. You need to start actively looking for work. Like, that benefit should not be something that's ongoing and continuous. It should end at some point.
Should be a finite system, yes. Otherwise, it encourages people just to be lazy.
Well, and maybe this is part of the $1 trillion that Trump has found, in government contracts that are going out, like the one to the hotel in New York, where they have they're fully occupied. So they have 100% occupancy rate, but the contract that he found supported that the owner of that hotel was receiving double the room rate, and they were all illegal citizens.
Well, I've always maintained that government contracts are really the true welfare, because they're way more money is being spent on those, and they're always usually inflated, especially when it comes to military supplies. And you remember the stories about the $500 hammer and $400 toilet seat and things like that for the military. And so, and construction on a state level, on a county level, on a city level, and especially on a federal level, there's a lot of waste in government contracts. Right.
100%. I'm glad he's actually researching it, and hopefully he finds it and gives it back to us.
Well, let's hope so.
In the 2012 U.S. presidential election, Murdoch was critical of the competence of Mitt Romney's team, but was nonetheless strongly supportive of a Republican victory, tweeting, "Of course I want him, Romney, to win. Save us for socialism," etc. So it sounds to me like you said he's... It sounds to me like you were saying that he's a conservative, but he just kind of flip-flops to whichever side he likes at the time.
He's bouncing around like a pinball.
In October 2015, Murdoch stirred controversy when he praised Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson and referenced President Barack Obama, tweeting, "Ben and Candy Carson, terrific. What about a real black president who can properly address the racial divide," and much else. After which he apologized, tweeting, "Apologies, no offense meant. Personally find both men charming." Trump's involved. During Donald Trump's term as U.S. president, Murdoch showed support for him through the news stories broadcast in his media empire, including on Fox News. In early 2018, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, had an intimate dinner at Murdoch's Bel Air estate in Los Angeles. I wonder if that has something to do with the purchasing of the yacht that was owned by Maxwell, because we're going to get into that here shortly. Says Murdoch is a strong supporter of Israel and its domestic policies. In October 2010, the Anti-Defamation League in New York City presented Murdoch with its International Leadership Award for his stalwart support of Israel and his commitments to promoting respect and speaking out against anti-Semitism. However, in April 2021, in a letter to Lachlan Murdoch, ADL director Jonathan Greenblatt wrote that it would no longer make such an award to his father. This was in the immediate context of accusations made by the ADL against Fox News presenter Tucker Carlson and his apparent espousal of the white replacement theory. What? Have you heard of the white replacement theory?
I don't want to know.
In 2023, during a defamation lawsuit by Dominion Voting Systems against Fox News, Murdoch acknowledged that some Fox News commentators were endorsing election fraud claims they knew were false. Bingo!
Wow.
On April April 18th, 2023, Fox and Dominion settled for $787.5 million.
That's a lot of money for the lawyers.
Yes, it is. Good Lord. That's a racket all in itself.
Yeah.
So, film and television. In 1999, the Ted Turner-owned TBS channel aired on original sitcom The Chimp Channel. This featured an all-simian cast and the role of an Australian TV veteran named Harry Waller. The character is described as a self-made gazillionaire with business interests in all sorts of fields. He owns newspapers, hotel chains, sport franchises, and genetic technologies, as well as everyone's favorite cable TV channel, The Chimp Channel. Waller is thought to be a parody of Murdoch, a longtime rival of Turner. Right? Did you? In 2004, the movie Outfoxed, Rupert Murdoch's war on journalism, included many interviews accusing Fox News of pressuring reporters to report only one side of the news stories in order to influence viewers' political opinion. And this is what I try to explain to any of my friends that want to have a political argument. You're being force-fed your beliefs. If you truly investigated and went back through history and time on any of these individuals, you'll find the dirt and the skeletons enough to say you don't want them running this country, that they're just part of that bigger makeup of people who truly don't care about us, who will lie to our faces to get elected and then not follow through or walk that walk once they're elected.
Yep.
Other assessments and investigations. In August of 2013, Terry Flew, professor of media and communications out at Queensland University of Technology, wrote an article for The Conversation publication in which he investigated a claim by former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd that Murdoch owned 70% of Australian newspapers in 2011. Flew's article showed that News Corp Australia owned 23% of the nation's newspaper in 2011, according to the Finkelstein Review of Media and Media Regulation. But at the time of the article, the corporation's titles accounted for 59% of the state's sales of all daily newspapers, with weekly sales of 17.3 million copies. All about the money.
Well, that's a big difference, 23% and 59%.
Well, he owned 23% of the nation's newspapers, okay, but that 23% was responsible for 59% of the sales.
Okay. So he had the big ones then, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In connection with Murdoch's testimony to the Leveson inquiry, do you know what the Leveson inquiry is?
No, I don't.
Into the ethics of the British press, editor of Newsweek International, Tunka Varadaharajan. I feel like my lips just twisted.
Yeah, be careful.
Referred to him as the man whose name is synonymous with unethical newspapers. So he just climbed the ladder of Hearst, in my mind, of yellow journalism.
Yeah. It's a modern day Hearst, yes.
Yeah, 100%. News Corp papers were accused of supporting the campaign of the Australian Liberal government, influencing public opinion during the 2013 federal election. Following the announcement of the Liberal Party victory at the polls, Murdoch tweeted, Australia election public sick of public sector workers and phony welfare scroungers sucking life out of the economy. Other nations to follow in time. I thought he was pro-illegal immigrants.
Okay, who knows? Speaking of Hearst, I just got my new book on the SLA and mind control, and Patty Hearst is on the cover.
Is that your phone ringing?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My new DJ.
Right? You said you just got the new book on Patty Hearst?
Well, she's a part of it. It's on the Symbionese Liberation Army, and Donald DeFreeze, the founder of the leader, and mind control. Because he was experimenting in mind control too. In fact, they reprogrammed Patty Hearst, actually. They put her through hypnosis and sensory deprivation and things like that.
Huh. So you said his name was Freeze?
Donald DeFreeze. His name was in the SLA, he was known as Sin Q. But his real name is Donald DeFreeze.
I'm wondering if that's why the Zodiac wrote the SLA letters stating that the Norse word SLA means to kill a friend.
Well, who knows? But it's definitely the theory of the book is that the SLA was perhaps a MK Ultra type project to discredit the movement on the left, or progressive movements, claimed to be a progressive, but the first person they killed was a black superintendent of schools in Oakland, who was kind of a progressive guy. So why would you kill him if you're a progressive group? No, they were just weird. They were an experiment.
Well, that ties in, makes a little bit more sense. It just like this whole John Walsh thing, where I wondered for so long, how did he get the position that he got when he was supposedly a small town guy, nobody, with no skeletons in his closet. Once you start to put the pieces together, it just kind of like that light bulb goes off. And that kind of now makes sense as to why the Zodiac would have written in regards to the SLA, especially with the inside knowledge that we know the Zodiac had. The solves coming from both Lauren Swearingen and Harriet both indicated that he's crying out for help for a remedy from MK Ultra. So maybe he was very much aware of what was going on inside the SLA, and that's why he wrote out that that's basically a program to kill a friend. SLA is the Norse word for kill a friend. And that just kind of describes it. You're saying right there, the first people they kill is somebody that should have been a friend.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. News Corp papers were accused of supporting the campaign of the Australian Liberal government and I got that one. Welfare scroungers. In November 2015, former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott said that Murdoch arguably has had more impact on the wider world than any other living Australian.
Wow.
If it's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. In late 2015, the Wall Street Journal journalist John Carreyrou, I can't say that, Carreyrou.
Close enough.
Right? Began a series of investigative articles on Theranos, the blood testing startup founded by Elizabeth Holmes, that questioned its claims. Okay, so this journalist from Murdoch's company, Wall Street Journal, writes an article or makes some type of news in regards to the questioning of its claims to be able to run a wide range of lab tests from a tiny sample of blood from a fingerprint prick. Holmes, which is the owner, Elizabeth, of Theranos, had turned to Murdoch, whose media empire includes Carreyrou's employer, the Wall Street Journal, to kill the story. Murdoch, who became the biggest investor in Theranos in 2015 as a result of his $125 million injection, refused the request from Holmes, saying that he trusted the paper's editors to handle the matter fairly. Is this like corporate espionage? I was a little bit confused by this. So his company writes bad press about her. He's a partial owner in the company. She goes to him, asks him to make the story go away. He says, no, they'll be fair. And then he turns around and injects $125 million into her company. It says in November 2021, Murdoch accused without providing evidence that Google and Facebook of stifling conservative viewpoints on its platforms and called for substantial reform and openness in the digital ad supply chain. Well, isn't that the kettle calling it the pot black?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You're complaining that someone is not fair? So confused. Well, I thought here we were going to have the intro for Lindsay's particular, let me see if they even responded, but she has a little introduction that she did on TikTok. Wound care and physical therapy. Oh, Harriet is busy with wound care and physical therapy people right now, so that's why she wasn't on. And I haven't heard from Lindsay, but I was supposed to play her intro. But if she's not here, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to move on to more of the connections that she's provided to me. One of those, obviously, is Murdoch with JFK. Murdoch with Robert Maxwell, of course, and it had some interesting information showing that the rival publishers, and I like it that they call them rival, but they're standing there smiling. Every picture I see, they've got drinks in their hands and they've got great big smiles on their face. So are you really a rival?
I don't know.
I don't know about you.
What media did Maxwell own?
Let's see. Rival publishers, Robert Maxwell, 1923 to 1991 left, and Rupert Murdoch shake hands during a vote on their respective bids for the News of the World newspaper at a shareholders meeting at the Connaught Rooms in London, January 2nd of 1969. The shareholders voted on whether to accept a share exchange deal with Murdoch's company, News Ltd, or approve a £34 million takeover bid by Pergamon Press, owned by Maxwell.
Pergamon Press, okay.
I've never heard of them, but maybe they're in London, and that's why.
Well, they probably are the parent company for several different British and British Isles publications.
It says the vote went in favor of Murdoch's offer. Photo by Ronald Dumont, Daily Express, Holton Archive, Getty Images. So evidently Murdoch won that vote. Of course. But we get to see them all over the place together. So evidently, and I didn't know this about Maxwell. I don't know that I really understood what he did, period. But this was just some tiebacks to the Epstein crap and Murdoch himself. So she sent pictures of Murdoch with, I never say her name correctly. Ghislaine
Maxwell?
Ghislaine?
That was the one that helped Epstein?
Yeah. So here they are, hobnobbing, rubbing shoulders, hanging out. That just makes me eeky. Maxwell and Murdoch at a meeting. The newspaper magnates Robert Maxwell, Rupert Murdoch at the meeting to arrange the takeover of the News of the World. Shareholders voted in favor of the Murdoch bid. London, 1969. So yeah.
Is she related to Robert then? What a small world.
Yes, that's the daughter.
What a small world.
and of course she's part of human trafficking and child diddling. I didn't try and say the right words to be banned.
Yeah.
But yeah, what is it really a small world? I mean, one side of me says that attorneys hang out with attorneys, judges hang out with judges, doctors hang out with doctors. So it doesn't shock me that we see media magnates hanging out with media magnates. Does that necessarily mean that they understand each and everyone's personal business? I don't necessarily think that has to be the case, but they definitely, like I said, seem to be extremely chummy and hanging out. And the daughter of Maxwell is taking pictures with Murdoch, and I don't know. Every time I see anybody in a picture with this woman or Epstein, I just want to cringe.
Yeah, no doubt.
Here's another. It gets very interesting as we go into it. So
she got sentenced to prison, didn't she? Or
I don't know what happened to her. Or I was pretty sure that Trump stated he was going to be releasing the client list of Epstein. So it'll be interesting to see if that truly happens. But for anybody, so in this particular portion that Lindsay had sent over, it says on the evening of November 5th, 1991, with his empire, including the Daily Mirror, on the brink of collapse, Maxwell's naked 22nd Street, I don't understand what that's supposed to mean. That means. 22nd Street body was found floating in the Atlantic off of the Canaries, pictured. So they're showing him pictured on the boat there, which naked body overboard, floating on the brink of collapse of his news corporation, as if to say what, he committed suicide? I have no idea. But here we again have Murdoch and Maxwell. It says how Murdoch sailed off. And so this is where it gets even more interesting. How a Murdoch sailed off with Maxwell's yacht. For years, the press titans battled for supremacy. And now Rupert Murdoch's ex-wife has bought and refitted Robert Maxwell's boat, Lady Ghislaine, named after his disgraced daughter and scene of his death. Wow. So Murdoch's ex-wife ends up with Maxwell's yacht.
I wonder how Maxwell really died.
I do too. Yeah, very much so. And did he really? I mean, was there a body? Yes. Did somebody prove it? Like, was he just, was it fake to get him out from underneath of whatever he was in so he could go live out the rest of his life somewhere else comfortably? Who knows?
Yeah.
They go on to say why, though.
Swiss banks in the Cayman Islands.
Right. It goes on to say why, though, of all yachts in the world, would the former Mrs. Murdoch, now Anna Murdoch man, depeaster, having twice remarried since divorcing Murdoch in 1998, have chosen to buy this particular yacht. Author John Preston offers the following explanation in the very final paragraph of his book, Fall, The Mystery of Robert Maxwell, which features a photograph of the Lady Ghislaine on the front cover. He writes, we're almost out of time. All right. Well, I will stop this. We will go back into this information at a later time. Everybody, it was wonderful talking to you all today. Thank you, Nolan, for being here. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will catch back up on this issue with the yacht next Friday.
See you next week. If not,
bye.
See you later.